All right, so we've got Alabama head football coach Nick Saban heading up to the table now. Obviously, excited to be joined by him, to be able to talk to him. Coach, good to see you again. Thank you very much.
Coach, first stop at Media Days, man. We appreciate a couple minutes. Fresh off the highway in that beautiful Mercedes. Coach, a lot of people buzzing yesterday about some of the comments, but I don't want to ask about that specifically. I want to ask how you're using the NIL to make sure that the players are aware of everything that's going on. How are you making sure that they're educated on some of the decisions that they make and the brands they align with?
Well, I think, first of all, awareness is always really important, and ability to adapt, But the thing about it is this is really not that much different than what it's always been. Players have always been allowed to work. I mean, you could work and make money in the summertime if you want, and just a few years back, it was a big thing to have a good summer job program where guys could make extra money. That's what I did when I played. But then when we put them on scholarship and they got, extra money for cost of attendance and things like that, and guys could go to summer school on scholarship, that kind of just faded away. So now there's a different way for them to have an opportunity to make money, which I think is a good thing. And I think that the one thing that we've tried to really make our players aware of is the fact that everything's always been equal and the same in college football. And it's probably not going to be that way, in the future, because some positions, some players are going to have better opportunities than others. And so, that's got to be something that doesn't impact or affect the purpose of our team, your purpose as a player to continue to develop, because the more you develop, the more you create a positive brand for yourself. You're not only creating value for the next level, the NFL, which is much more significant than anything anybody could make working in any college job. That's got to be the focus. And you can't be looking over your shoulder and worried about somebody else. Just focus on what you can control, what you can do to create a positive brand for yourself and make a positive impact on your team.
Coach Saban, when you focus on your defense, one of my favorite quotes that I had from all of last season, we sat down with you before the Kentucky game. I asked you, just sort of across college football, why you personally thought defenses were struggling. You said defense can't do a damn thing against air. And you not having spring football, college football not having spring ball, and then obviously the summer being very different. I'm interested just from you, your eyes, actually having a spring practice, what you saw in your defense from a developmental standpoint that you didn't get last year.
Well, I think that because we have more players back on defense, their experience was certainly something that was invaluable to their development. But I just think the opportunity to react to things that they're going to see, whether it's RPOs, a lot of screens in the game right now, there's a lot of spread stuff, ability to take on blocks, play the run, play with better fundamentals. And I think even the bigger impact for us was because we have so many new players on offense. Last year we had all the new players on defense. So not having that experience of spring practice in the summer and not being able to react to the people across the ball was very impactful. But this year, because we have a lot of new faces on offense, the experience they gained, in spring practice, as well as what they're gaining over the summer, I think is invaluable in their development.
When you think about Bill O'Brien and all the experience he has, we're all kind of wondering, what does this offense look like? Last year was motion-based, creating matchups with formation and motions, guys in advantageous situations, most often Devontae Smith being in those situations. How different will the offense look now with Bill O'Brien calling the plays, and what's the identity going to look like early on?
I don't think a lot different. I think, we tried to maintain as much continuity as we could for the players, as well as the things that we did were very successful. So you want to continue to do the things that were successful, and you want to study and try to improve the things that, might not have been as successful. And I think the new staff has done a really good job of getting up to speed on how we did things and making some improvements in those things and making additions where, they were necessary and helpful. So I don't think it's going to look a lot different.
Coach, you've oftentimes talked about experience and how important that is, and just mentioned spring ball, able to get that, be able to react, be able to see things. A player that would normally miss spring practice, I would assume, would be very difficult to come in, start, contribute right away. What's the benefit for a young man like Henry To'oTo'o who played in a very similar scheme before he comes over to step into yours?
Yeah, I don't think the transition has been really easy for him. The terminology is very similar. Scheme is very similar. Henry's very smart and, really conscientious. So every day he's asking questions and learning. So it hasn't been a difficult transition at all for him. But, we've had numerous players in the past who were freshmen that didn't go through spring practice that end up starting. Malachi Moore, last year. Minka did it when he was a freshman. So, it just depends on the player. It depends on their mindset in terms of how quickly they can learn and apply things, and can they understand the concepts so they can go out on the field and play with confidence.
When we look at the running back group and even to a certain extent the receiver group, you got a lot of really talented guys, some of which are unproven, some have played a lot but haven't necessarily been forced into a feature role. How do you anticipate kind of divvying up the reps amongst the running backs, and how do you figure out how to distribute, at least evenly early on, to some of the wide receivers?
Well, the way we practice, Greg, and you've done it before, is everybody practices. We practice, ones and threes, twos and fours, and everybody gets a lot of reps, especially early on in camp. So nobody misses any reps. And I think sometimes it gets a little overrated that you need to be on the first team or the second team or whatever team you're on, because we really don't have a depth chart. The depth chart for fall camp is really all about how can we administer practice the best and get the most reps and the most advantage for the players to develop. So, I don't think it's a problem. It hadn't been a problem all summer. And, we've got a lot of good players, and the cream will come to the top. And like you said, there's a lot of new roles. And, how players embrace those roles, and, how they can sort of be accountable and responsible to do a job at a high level is going to determine, how much they play and how well we play early on.
Coach, Greg's going to hate this, but I'm going to go offensive line. You've only school that's won the Joe Moore Award twice. You've had a lot of success there. Why Doug Marrone is your offensive line coach?
Oh, he's a great coach. He was a really good college coach when he was in college. I actually tried to hire him at LSU and never got it done. And I've always followed his career. He's got a great personality. The players really respond well to him, and he does a really good job with them. So I thought he was, really, really good. And he certainly hasn't disappointed in any way in terms of the way he's, sort of developed a lot of the young players at that position, because we're going to be young in some of the spots. Guys have talent, so how they develop will be a key to how well we can play early on.
Coach, finally, I think a lot of us had made the assumption that because of the lack of development last year, some of the young players that missed out on that might even make a bigger leap this year. Is that a reasonable assumption to make, knowing the hands-on coaching they received in spring, summer, and now fall camp?
You know me, Greg. I don't make any assumptions.
Right. That's fair enough. That's fair enough.
I'm just day to day. What can we do today to make us better, and what can we do tomorrow to make us better? And I think that's the approach that every player should use. If they really focus on development and not outcomes, but what do I have to do to get the outcome and continue to progress, day to day, and have respect for, be able to self-assess and have respect for the critical eye. That also helps improvement of young players, and some guys have more maturity to be able to do that, and they develop more quickly. So we're just focused on every guy and what can we do to make him as good as he can be so he can contribute to the team in a positive way.
Coach, can I ask you a hypothetical, even though there are no assumptions? If you had 11 players to go play a game tomorrow, only 11, and you had to start Greg McElroy, but it couldn't be at quarterback, what other position would you start Greg McElroy at?
Probably punt returner and tell him fair catch.
So you acknowledge the hands at least. Yeah. You acknowledge that. You know what? I'm going to take that. You got to find the silver lining, Coach. There's a sliver in there, but there's hands.
Special teams are important.
Involved in catching a punt. I feel
that's
like.
Right. And kickoff return too, because you can fair catch those now.
No, I would take that out.
I was hoping for Holder.
There's no way. There's no way I'm taking a knee, nor am I fair catching.
No, he can hold. He had good enough hands to be a holder.
Absolutely.
That's one of the arts that sort of, when I played quarterback, that was just a part of what you did.
Everybody did it.
Right.
Everybody did it. And now, I mean, we have to have a tryout on our team, right, to find people who can hold.
Yeah.
And it's sort of a lost art in a way.
You think a lot of that is high school quarterbacks aren't doing it anymore?
No, I don't think any of them do it. And it's a little above their pay grade, I guess. But and this one was no different.
It's a thankless position.
When he was there.
It's a thankless position.
But very important.
Absolutely.
Very important. And I think the trend became, and it started in the NFL because it's always a practice issue, to get the quarterback to be able to work with the kicker enough to be able to hold enough. And you got the punter over there. All right, and they're working together in practice because they have their own little individual things. So the punter could be the holder. So that kind of started a trend in the NFL, which kind of pushed the quarterback out for good reason.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
All right, but when you're in a critical game and you're kicking a field goal to win the championship and the punter trots out there to hold the ball, it's not comforting.
I feel a little
me.
better with the quarterback.
He hadn't been in too many of those situations in his life.
Man, Coach, we so appreciate the time. Have a great day today.
All right,
We're looking
thanks,
forward
guys.
to it.
Thank you,
Appreciate
Coach.